So, welcome back to another episode of Web3 Insights. Today, I'm joined once again by Alon Muroc, who is the founder and CEO of SSV Network, to unpack some of the biggest updates coming out of one of Ethereum's leading staking infrastructure protocols. SSV has climbed to second on Rated Network, introduced a game-changing SSV 2.0 upgrade, and they're playing a major role in the evolution of restaking, modular staking, and BApps as well. We're also going to talk about their upcoming SSV chain, new economic models, and why this matters for developers, validators, and the multi-chain future. So if you're into staking, infra, or new wave of Ethereum native applications, this is a must listen. Let's get into it. Alon, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me a second time, actually.
No, absolute pleasure. Congrats, firstly, on SSV obviously climbing to second spot on Rated. A great achievement. Keen to understand what does this signify for the network, and how do you see SSV's position in evolving in the staking landscape?
I think last time we've talked, we were probably fourth or fifth. I think this is really shows two things. One is SSV, leveraging the technology and leveraging what's happening in the ecosystem, obviously to gain bigger market share and just have an adoption to the protocol we've developed. But also I think in kind of a more generalistic type of view is the adoption of DVT. DVT has been around for quite a while, and on mainnet I would say anywhere between a year and a half. And we're now starting to see that pushing boundaries and getting a quite significant amount of validators running on top of it. SSV is just crossing the 9% mark. Basically, 9% of all of the ETH staked is operated on SSV, which is quite significant. And so I think that kind of symbolizes the maturity of DVT, and also kind of preparing us for kind of our next step or next phase, which is really building a very robust economical layer for validators on Ethereum. And I think within it, really making one of the biggest assets Ethereum has, which is its validator set, making it more robust, enhancing and making sure that we have more and more solo stakers and small time stakers, and in general, creating this economical layer on top of staking that I think will serve Ethereum and the greater community at large.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of noise around, noise and confusion, should I say, around restaking right now. You recently published a piece that brings it back to basics. Can you break that down and share SSV's current thesis on where restaking is headed?
So I think it's pretty obvious that restaking came out in a big bang about a year ago. Took a lot of different, both capital injections, but also a lot of attention, and then kind of a lot of that is not there anymore. A lot of the excitement and so on, and we're kind of getting into the phase of implementation and building the actual market. I think what happens now with restaking is everyone is looking for this one single really big adopter or builder that comes and uses it, and think that that's where things are now, basically. So it's not necessarily as evolved, and also at the same time it's not it's not there yet. And so I think that's kind of where the market is. But having said that, I think in general, the idea that we want to have this really, really robust and simple infrastructure for people to build decentralized applications which are not on-chain contracts is quite important. I think that if you look at the landscape today, almost every major protocol, DeFi protocol, L2, any of those big protocols have some or a lot of their tech stack built to be an off-chain multi-party decentralized distributed application or service. Anything from oracles all the way to data availability layers, co-processors, zk provers, stuff like AI agents, and so on and so forth. And so the demand, I think, is there. We just need to redefine what are the tools you can use in order to actually implement those types of things. And so I think that's where the challenge and also where the opportunity lies. To it is quite different than restaking. I think restaking is very expensive and not very scalable, and it's not a good approach. I think I'm looking at it more as how cloud services evolve. So if you look at cloud services from a very generalistic point of view, cloud services are a way to deploy a centralized single point of failure type of applications. Now, we usually look at single point of failure type of applications as something bad in the blockchain space. but it's not really that. Like in Web 2, it is the majority of the type of services, and there's a lot of place and utility for that. But nonetheless, cloud services are very, very fine-tuned, highly optimized for that, for deploying very fast, single point of failure, single entity type of applications. I think we need to have shared security to be the kind of the mirror image of that to the Web3 world, where it's actually, you could, with a click of a button, deploy a multi-party distributed type of application as fast as you would have with cloud services. And I think that's where things are headed, and what the missing link. And so if you try to translate that to infrastructure, you need something which is highly scalable and extremely affordable. And that's exactly the opposite of risk-taking currently, because risk-taking is not scalable and it's very expensive because it makes use of a lot of capital.
Yeah.
Or just look at leading risk-taking protocols and how much capital locked there. Somebody needs to pay for that capital. And so our approach is to utilize this massive asset we have in Ethereum, which are the validators. The validators are already have a wide variety of different people running that software. They are obviously highly capable of running optimized software. There's a lot of them, 1.1 million just on Ethereum itself. They present the best and the biggest validator set on earth. And so I think that's the future of shared security. It's using existing validator sets with some kind of a bond, but at much reduced capital requirements than what we see today. And that's going to bring us to scalability and affordability. And I think that's what we bring to the table in terms of and where things are headed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking of SSV 2.0, which, you recently introduced, you're describing it as based applications protocol. What is it? How does it change the game? And why should developers care and be interested in it?
So based applications are a type of decentralized application which is based on existing L1 validators, basically making use of those validators to bootstrap and secure and give functionality to a specific type of service or protocol. Developers should care about it because, as I've mentioned before, almost any type of service, DApp, DeFi protocol, any of them have some off-chain component which is distributed. The point is that every single one of them is rebuilding the entire tech stack just for their own use case, right? If you have some kind of a DeFi protocol, let's say, a DEX, a lot of that, or borrowing or lending and stuff like that, a lot of them are using oracles, but they're building their own oracles or some kind of a combination of a bunch of oracles because their oracles are not very trustworthy. And so they're reinventing the wheel each time. I think that what should developers care about it is because at some point we need a platform where with the click of a button, just like cloud services, you could deploy a multi-party distributed app, test it, bring it to production, to mainnet as fast as possible. So I think that's why people should care about it. In general, if I need to take like a bird's eye view of Ethereum, I think there's two really, really important things we need to do as the Ethereum community to bring value back to ETH holders. One is synchronous composability, the idea that we can create a much better user experience, synchronized user experience. Basically, you can make a transaction one L2, and it takes impact on other L2s and even the L1. But also it includes base sequencing, which is the actual Ethereum validators doing the sequencing for L2s, which will eventually bring them a lot of value back to ETH holders. So that's, from bird's eye view, that's one thing we should focus on as an Ethereum ecosystem. And two is based apps. Both of those things will bring a lot of value capturing back to ETH holders. And I think that's one of the major challenges we have as a community today. There's not enough value capturing happen on the ETH token. And so that's why I think it has repercussions well beyond just the builders themselves. I think it's important for Ethereum to adopt this type of narrative because that's what will eventually be, I think, will be the winning narrative for Ethereum. Because if Ethereum continues to ride on this narrative of faster, better, scalable, decentralized, it's very hard to translate to Ethereum type of people, and a lot of them, an increasing number of them, becoming TradFi users. And so again, from a bird's eye view, I think that's extremely important to create this value capturing. And I think synchronous composability with based apps is the way to go. And so it's important for developers, it's important for Ethereum, and obviously the Ethereum validators.
Yeah, so the based applications are applications that are secured by SSV's underlying protocol. What are based applications important for developers? What do they unlock that wasn't possible before?
So you unlock a few things. One is a unified, standardized developer ecosystem. So if you want to build some kind of a distributed app, it could be something simple and small like an Oracle for your own contract, and all the way to building a whole L1 on top of it. It brings you standardized tooling and very easy bootstrap with the best existing validator set on earth. Right. In our future is also multi-blockchain capabilities. So basically, you could bootstrap using multiple blockchain validators. So you could take validators from Ethereum, Solana, and Cosmos, and so on, and bootstrap your own protocol. And again, it can be as small as a simple Oracle for your own use case, all the way to a full-fledged L1. And so that's why it's important for developers. The second and third points are how scalable it is and how affordable it is. So it's extremely scalable because, again, we're tapping into the largest validator sets on earth. And so as long as you're smaller than Ethereum, you're good, right? And second is affordability. Because we're bootstrapping using this asset, which is not very used right now, other than obviously securing Ethereum and other blockchains, the cost of it is extremely low, around 90% lower than restaking, than capital. And so you get a standardized tools and a developer ecosystem, which is very easy to bootstrap with. You get scale and you get affordability, and I think that's what developers are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. You've also got the SSV Lido module, which is another exciting step. Can you explain how it works and what kind of flexibility that gives into the Lido validator community?
So we've been working with Lido for quite a while on a bunch of different programs. The ultimate expression of that is the SSVLM, the SSV Lido module, where basically the idea is that the bigger Lido DAO decides that they want to decentralize the underlying operators that run their validators. Currently, the vast majority of their validators is run by a whitelisted list, or a whitelist of operators that are pre-selected by the DAO. The idea with the Lido module that we're building is that we're going to make it completely permissionless, and we're going to make it DVT. So basically, it means that every single validator that is run on the SSVLM will be run by permissionless operators. Anyone can join with a very small amount of bond. And two, every single validator will be run in a DVT set with DKG. That is, every single key was generated from the get-go in a distributed way. No single operator has the full key. And so if any of them are getting hacked or compromised, the underlying validator is not compromised. And each validator is also run by a cluster, by a bunch of different operators. And so the level of decentralization and security we can bring to Lido is very, very high, much higher than what they have today. And the SSVLM will also do it at scale. So the idea is to scale it up, hopefully by DAO decisions to 10-15% of the entire Lido validator set. And so I think that's the big kind of news here, is that the Lido's commitment is very significant towards decentralization, and we're helping to make it happen. We're also building really the first module for Lido, which is not Lido built. So it's kind of first time in that. And also, I think it ties up very, very nicely to kind of based apps and SSV 2.0, because again, if you can enable those operators to earn extra rewards, then imagine the economical impact you're opening up here, right? I mean, you could, as an operator, somebody who's running software, could put up a very small bond, get a whole validator to run on the behalf of Lido, but also generate extra rewards by tapping into additional based apps. And so the net effect of that will be more solo operators coming in and wanting to participate, because their rewards they can get is significantly higher than what they can get in staking. And so the net effect of that will be more and more solo stakers coming in, participating in that program. And I think that's something which is impactful for Ethereum as a whole.
Amazing. Yeah, let's talk about SSV Chain. You've described it as a path to multi-chain security using any layer one validator set. Why is this such a big narrative for SSV?
So if you buy into the idea of based apps and the economical kind of underlying mechanics there, why should it be only limited for Ethereum, right? I mean, obviously Ethereum is the biggest validator set, but I think that this future is even more interesting, being a multi-blockchain future, because Imagine that for the first time, you can enable Solana and Ethereum validators work together to secure a single base tap. That's something that nobody's ever did before. And that's basically combining the strength of each one of them in a different way, different price points, different geolocation, different characteristics and properties. And so I think that if we can bring that value, not just for Ethereum, but rather for the greater blockchain world, I think it brings a lot of innovation on top of it. First of all, people can build base taps not for a single ecosystem, but for multiple ecosystems, which is something which already happens. But secondly, you can bootstrap using not only the best validator set in the world, but the best validator sets in the world. And I think that's a really, really exciting future. It also, I think, again, opens up a door for a lot of different interesting things. For example, you could have Ethereum validators boosting up security for other L1 chains, right? And vice versa. And so that opens up the door for a lot of different interesting things. And I think that, again, the idea of that happening, I think, is something that we've never seen before. This level of cooperation and coordination between multiple chains.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I also read somewhere you mentioned about upcoming changes to SSV token economics. What's changing specifically, firstly, and how will it better align incentives for developers, validators, and users?
I think once you talk about base taps, you realize that any type of value, which is net value you can bring to validators, has a lot more carryover value than staking. Because if I can give you, if you make X in staking, but in SSV you could be making 50%, 100% more by participating in base taps, the fees I think that the protocol can take on that net value added is significantly higher than it can take in staking, probably around 10x more. And so that changes completely the amount of foreseeable fees that the protocol can generate, because ultimately what you're saying is basically there's endless ways and endless types of base taps. Each one of them can generate endless amount of value, and I can take 10% out of that as fees, right? And so the level of scale we're talking about is unprecedented. I mean, even with the current scale of SSV, we're ultimately bounded or limited by the amount of fees that are generated in staking, and then what we can take as a protocol, because ultimately it kind of bites into the underlying rewards that people get in staking. Here, it's value, it's net value added to what they're doing right now. And so I think that changes completely the scale of fees we can take. Even now, the amount of fees we take is, because of our scale, is quite significant, around 2.5-3% a year of the circulating supply, or total supply, sorry, of SSV is paid in fees, which is incredible. I think we can do 10x that, even more so, with SSV 2.0. That also brings the opportunity of, together with SSV staking to secure the SSV chain, you could actually burn some of those fees, because you don't need all of those fees to go to stakers. You can actually burn some of those fees. So you have these two levers you can play with. And so I think that changes the economics in a way that we never had before in SSV, because of the scale and because we're bringing net value, which doesn't exist outside SSV. And so that's where I think the economics change dramatically.
Yeah. So looking ahead, as we always do towards the end of the episode, as you build toward mainnet expansion and developer onboarding, what are some of the next big milestones people should watch out for?
So we are a few weeks away from public testnet. We're already on a devnet, and public testnet is coming up very, very shortly. And then probably around a couple of months from now, we'll be on mainnet. We're already building up a long pipeline of different developers coming in and building, and so on and so forth. And so those are the next kind of steps within this half of the year. Then second half of the year is Genesis for the multi-blockchain base tap chain, somewhere around end of Q3, beginning of Q4. Those are the two main things we're going to work on.
Exciting. And for those listening who want to dive in and build with SSV, how can they join the testnet and start building?
So just go to ssv.network. You'll have full documentation, SDK, full example of how to build base taps. So it's very well documented. And once the testnet is up and running, feel free to join.
Nice, amazing. Alon, as always, this has been packed, with insights and some major updates there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The shift from pure staking infra to a developer platform and application layer is massive. It's exciting to see, and even for myself to watch SSV sort of lead the charge. So yeah, massive congrats to yourself and the team. For anyone who wants to get involved, as Alon mentioned, join the testnet, explore the B apps or based apps, and read up on SSV 2.0. You can go to ssv.network. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Web3 Insights for more cutting edge conversations like this one. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.